Okay, thank you very much. I'll make my presentations in English. Please bear with me. I have two presentations, but I'll try to be very quick. I'll start with the Economic Report on Africa 2019. If I could take us back a little bit to yesterday morning, where we had two important observations from the presentations and the Mama Keita's presentation and the very powerful panel that we had here yesterday morning. The first observation was that in the short term, macroeconomic monitoring and implementation of more long-term policies that promote economic transformation are required not just for the Central Africa region, but for the entire Africa. And the second observation was these two are not mutually exclusive. So, for example, spending policies that promote long-term economic transformation can be prioritized. Spending on infrastructure that eases supply-side constraints, and spending on education that strengthens human capital and improves social outcomes, which are more longer-term, which produce more longer-term results, can be prioritized in a situation where you're trying to, where you have very little fiscal space. So, to continue with this, which brings me to the presentation. Again, for this presentation, I have two major points that if you miss anything else, these are the two key issues that you should walk away with. The first is I'll go over the macroeconomic developments in Africa. And the second, we'll see that growth in Africa is not enough to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And so I'll also give a couple of options for financing for Sustainable Development Goals. So growth in Africa in 2018 was at 3.2%. In Central Africa, growth was at 1.4%. Now, Central Africa is the region that's doing the best in terms of growth, and we expect that in terms of the speed of growth, and we expect that in 2019 this growth will double to about 2.8%. The notable gains were made in the social sector. So since 2000, government spending on education and health has risen, and this has risen across the board. And poverty rates have dropped from about 36% have dropped to about 36% in 2016 from 54.3% in 1990. However, the inequality, the Gini coefficient remains high at 0.44% for the entire Africa. Now, Central Africa has four countries that are on programs with the IMF, that have the extended credit facility with the IMF. This extended credit facility is for a period of 3 years, and it requires that these four Central African countries create fiscal space by fiscal consolidation, which could either be through fiscal consolidation, which could either be through increasing revenue collection, or by reducing spending. Now, since we've seen from the first slide that growth is not enough to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030, then the best option would be to increase revenue collection. In the annual report, the annual ECA flagship report, the Economic Report on Africa 2019, we did an analysis and we benchmarked all the 54 African countries to try and determine what could be the key areas where we could get this revenue increases from. And we found there were six key findings. First, the fiscal policy options. Second, the tax policy options. And the third was the non-tax revenue options. And then tax administration options and policy options for the natural resource sector. And then debt policy option or sustainable debt management.